Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Therapist Theater. My name is Josh Treese, and I'm coming to you from Music City, USA, with the podcast that takes a look at relationships and mental health through the lens of movies, TV, and pop culture. Today, I've got something very important to tell you. It's news that simply must be broadcast as far and wide as possible because of its significance. Today, April the 17th, is Leigh-Ann Treese's birthday. So, I just wanted to take a minute to say, happy birthday, my love. You are, without a doubt, my favorite human being. Every day that I get to wake up next to you and bear witness to your life and all of its wonder is the best day of my life. I would say that getting to watch as you change the world for so many is the best thing in the world, but it pales in comparison to being your husband and getting to be loved by you. You, unlike anyone else, have made me feel seen, known, accepted, and loved. You've made my life consistently and progressively better every day. Your beautiful mind and heart have helped me to grow as a person, and you are, without reservation, the most gorgeous woman ever to walk the earth. I love you, and I like you, Leigh-Ann Treese. Happy birthday. And if you want to send a happy birthday message to Leigh-Ann, email it to therapisttheater@gmail.com, and I'll make sure that she gets every single one. And hey, as long as you've got your hands on those keyboards, I'd love to ask for your help with the show. My mission with Therapist Theater is to make mental health more understandable and accessible to others. I chose to do this through talking about movies because it's something that everyone already has in their life. So it gives me a chance to help educate without the need for a requirement to read a textbook or attend a course. I need your help to reach more people, so if you like what we do here on the show, would you consider giving it a 5-star rating in the podcast app? It would also help if you could write a 5-star review. Every time the show gets a positive rating or review, we increase the chances of being seen and reaching more people. So thanks so much for your help. This week on the show, I welcome David Ball to the theater. David is a counselor here in Nashville and a former NFL defensive end. He's got a great story of how he ended up in the mental health field and was a great conversation. David brought the classic Kevin Costner movie Field of Dreams, and before he chose it, I had actually never seen it. I think its permanent presence in pop culture had caused so much of it to be absorbed into my brain that I just never felt like I needed to, but I am so glad that I did. So let's go the distance and dim the lights, raise the curtain, and start the previews. Welcome to the theater.
Love it. It's going great.
Yeah.
It's going great.
Day off. Got any big plans?
Big plans? No. Basketball with my oldest boy later. Just kind of enjoy the day.
I love it. So cool. Day off. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I like to start off by asking everybody, why therapy? How did you get into this thing that we do?
Yeah. It's a long story. You got a couple hours. All right, here we go. No. Oh man. So mental health for me was nothing. It was nothing. I had no thoughts of mental health at all.
Did you have any concept of it other than maybe like you had seen Frasier or something like that?
So unfortunately, I grew up with a sports background, a very hyper masculine background. And so my conceptualization of mental health was, you got the people who are strong willed, who can make things happen, and then there's normal people and then there's crazy people.
So you had mentally tough.
Sure.
And like you can
Michael Jordan, mentally tough, willing it to happen.
Yeah. He's got the flu. He's in the game.
Oh, yes.
He's making the shot.
And yes. And if like you're in that sports just swirl, that's what they project. That's what is projected on TV.
Did a coach drill that into you? Was that coming from the family?
I would say based on that's what I got a twin brother, hyper competitive, and like it's a sports culture I grew up in. And then on TV, it's like, man, we loved watching sports. And then movies, they talk about crazy people and then strong-willed like Rambo types. But nothing is ever talked about. Well, this is kind of what anxiety is. You know, you hear the term like mental breakdown, but it's not a mental breakdown. It's just these things going on that are really hard to deal with for people, and people don't know what to deal with them.
Yeah.
And so anyways, long story short, it's like, man, mental health, like, screamed into my life when I was in college. And so I was like, man, I came home, we went to a Mexican restaurant. I was like 20-ish. And so I basically, it was like, had a panic attack and I didn't know what it was. And it's like, I don't know if you've ever had them, but a lot of people have them, and it's a jarring experience.
Yeah. Heart rate increases.
Yeah.
You're hyper aware.
Sure. And
everything feels like danger.
Everything danger. It's like, and I was thinking, what the heck's going on? And I was like, man, did I eat something? Did I get food poisoning? Is this like something allergic? I drank? Yeah. And so I just couldn't settle down, and it was jarring. And then basically I couldn't get to sleep, went to the team trainers, and then they it was weird. It was like a very medical model of, oh, here, take this. Here's a prescription for this thing. It'll calm you down, and we'll talk to you later. You know? So that was my first experience of, oh gosh, there's something wrong. You know, wasn't really dealt with, you know, which in turn later I was able to figure out a lot on my own. Oh, it's anxiety. This is a panic attack, anxiety attack.
Which did you feel at that time? I mean, obviously being a college athlete, talk about stress.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it was brought on by stressors?
Yes.
Like, and just an inability, or not an inability. I don't know if it's an inability if you were never taught how to manage it so much as you just don't know.
So, yeah. And this is like, man, being in this profession, it's like, who knows where this stuff comes from or how it manifests or why. To me, I can put the pieces back together in that, man, I was in sports. I was always so afraid to fear of failure tremendously, which was helpful sometimes, very unhelpful others. So I had this intense, you know, I was going to be a starter that year. So I had tons of fear about that. I also had, man, my sister found a lump in her breast. Scary, really scary, you know? My childhood dog was dying, you know? And that was like really a huge thing for me. You know, I also had stuff with, so my wife, we were together at the time. I was having some relational issues there. So like all of these big things were like hanging there. And it was like, for me, I didn't have any coping skills, none. Didn't know how to talk about this internal experience at all. And so that's kind of how that thing manifested. So anyways, kind of had to talk to people and kind of seek help. And man, the unfortunate thing was where I was at the time, and I'm sure it's different now in sports psychology, but it's like, man, people weren't really helpful. And so, you know, got on meds. That really helped. You know, that helped me. And so I was a period of, man, let me just take this pill to help me, you know? So anyways, I always wanted, so from that moment, I wanted to be like, man, what's wrong with me? You know, what's going on? I read these psychology books.
You knew there was something deeper
than
just a medical.
Absolutely. I knew it was like, man, what is going on? I wanted to figure out kind of like how I attacked sports. I was like, man, what's wrong? How do I solve this? How do I solve it? How do I solve it?
And you went at it with the same passion.
Yes. And that was semi-healthy, but a lot unhealthy. So like, man, started reading books about psychology, started reading books about feeling better. I read this book, David Burns, like Feeling Better or something. That's all about CBT. So I attacked CBT the way I attacked football, which was not very healthy for me. No, not very healthy. So anyways, that was kind of the first taste of that. It kind of ebbed and flowed throughout my whole college career, professional career. But then, man, after football got done, that was like, it was a devastating blow for me. This purpose that I had for like 20 years, gone, you know, this structure that I had, this core of connection that I had was gone. I was like, who am I? It was like existential crisis, man. So anyways, I had to basically, like, walls were caving in. Tons of my stuff, man, anxiety kind of like came and swept me away, you know, which was very challenging. I had always been able to pour this, you know, this intensity inside because I have a lot of excitement and also on the flip side, a lot of anxiety. So like I have this intenseness inside.
Do you think those are mirrors? Like if you're able to get to the excitement and the enthusiasm, do you think that naturally the other side, the anxiety, that's going to be a deeper well as well?
Absolutely. Yes. So it's like, man, I have this, intensity where, man, excitement for me is it's great.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, the fear, man, that's real. It's challenging, So I had to do something about it. So with that intensity, I could pour that into football. Pour this focus and this, man, anxiety will help you. It'll really help you in life. It kept me prepared. It kept me over prepared. Like where I had not as many gifts athletically, I could pour it into game planning, preparation, working on my body, watching film. I could pour that into there. Great distraction.
So you were able to kind of go, all right, with sober judgment, I'm going to look at and see what are my, let's call them deficits. Cool. What are the things that I have that other people on the team don't?
Sure.
I'm going to increase those.
Sure. And that was fueled by fear.
Wow.
Fueled by it, where, I mean, if you're in this hyper athletic competitive environment, you can pour your fear into that. Some of the people who are most successful in this world are like so afraid and so like just pouring this insecurity into that, So anyways, football was done. So hard. What am I going to do now? I have no idea. That was like an existential kind of like life shift for me. And I needed to see somebody, man. It was like I was having some trouble sleeping. I was having a lot of anxiety. I had to go see somebody, I saw somebody throughout my career. That was basically to be like kind of at management stuff. Now I needed to actually work through this stuff. I needed to like deal with this stuff. And I basically wanted to be like, and I see people like this today, and it sucks for me to see this. And a lot of men are like this. It's like, I wanted to cut this anxiety out of me. I want to cut this quote unquote weak part out of me. It's taken me so long to figure out, oh, these are just parts of yourself that are, man, you need to attend to them. You need to heal them. And they're there for you. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling, but my desire to get into this, man, I went to therapy. It changed my life. Changed my life in a tremendous way. Not easy, very challenging, so worth it. It just kind of helped me reframe and reshift all of this stuff that's inside, and so I can hold it in a different way. And man, life is so much more full. Yeah. And it's like, man, I'm a healthier dad, I'm a healthier friend, I'm a healthier husband, and I'm better to myself, which is awesome. Yeah. So my experience as a client was a big part of it. Then football got over with. I went back to school, got my MBA. So then I started to be an entrepreneur.
Wow.
So I ran this sports analytics program for like 3 years. You know what SurveyMonkey is?
Yeah.
So it was like SurveyMonkey for sports. I had that idea. What if coaches could see all this stuff that was going on with athletes? So it was like getting player-driven feedback, anonymous feedback directly from players to coaches. That was awesome. 15% of the job I loved. Being with people. 15%.
That's a small.
But it was so fulfilling. I got to be with coaches. I got to be with players on a real level, helping them and like talking to them and forming relationships about stuff that really matters. The other 85% was gross. Accounting, growth strategy, sales, grody. Don't want to do it. It's like makes me physically kind of grossed out to even think of that stuff. It wasn't a fit. I was trying to do it for like 3 years. Randomly, I was getting mentored by this guy named Chris Redditch. He's a big software guy here in Nashville. He had a friend of his who was working for me, and the guy was talking about he's going back to school to become a mental health counselor. I'm like, you know what? I've had good experience. I always kind of thought maybe I could do that. He's like, well, here's this lady's number at Lipscomb. Maybe you should reach out. Randomly reached out to this lady. And then they're like, oh, we got an info session for the Lipscomb mental health, clinical mental health masters. Why don't you show up? Showed up at this thing. I was like, man, I wonder if I could do that. Applied, got in, started taking classes. And I'm like, this is for me. Wow. This is for me. So long story short, I've been doing it since, 2016. And it's like, I love this thing. This is like, this is an amazing profession. This life of being real and being with people. And it's just so fulfilling to me. Not easy, very challenging, but it's so amazing to me. Yeah. So
you're the second. So last week's guest, Emily Party, Lipscomb grad as well.
Okay, awesome.
So we're on a Lipscomb roll.
Yes.
We'll see how long we can keep it going.
Cream of the crop goes to Lipscomb.
Yeah.
It's just we're just so yes.
So a couple of questions.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you felt like once football wrapped up, you had like an existential crisis.
Yes.
I mean, I hit somewhat of the same thing when my first career ended too. Do you think that that's just like a natural, at some point, everybody's going to hit something like what am I doing? Why am I here?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And for me, I'm very hardwired sensitively, and I have a tendency to think and kind of overthink and ruminate sometimes. And so, man, I believe people have a tendency to, I mean, one of the big questions is, why am I here? You know, why? And so I would chew on that question. And man, the thing is, in football, it's like, oh, this is why you're here. You're meant to do this, you know? And either if it was or it wasn't, I was good at it and I could pour all of my effort and energy into it, you know? And now that was done, it's like, oh gosh, I can never, it's like, you can never, ever do that again. Sorry, ever. You're done. And I didn't want to be a coach. I was tired of moving.
Mm-hmm.
No. And that lifestyle is so stressful. So I want to be here, man. What can I do? I don't know. I have no idea. That's so hard. Yes. Every client I see, me, everybody faces that why question.
Yeah. And I just think, I mean, having gone through that myself, a lot of times when a client sits in my office, it's almost as if they think they're the only one
Yes.
who is going through that.
Yeah.
So I think something that I would just want, I don't know what that was, to put out there is just everybody goes through it.
Sure.
You're in good company. If you feel like I don't even know why I'm here and what I'm doing, I call that just a bad case of being a person.
Sure. Absolutely.
You know? And the beauty of it is that it's just part of the process of coming online to yourself and your heart.
Yeah.
And in just engaging, I think, your existence at a deeper level. And I wonder if a lot of times that happens after a career move or major change, because so far you've been able to go on autopilot for so long.
Sure.
You know, whatever the role or job that I had was, that was feeding that, I don't know, purpose part of me,
Sure.
that vision part of me. And now that that's over, I don't have the next autopilot thing lined up. I
Yes.
gotta find it.
For me, it was really scary to, like, I'd been in a culture where people tell you what to do on a continual basis. And now it's one of the kind of pillars of existential psychology is freedom. And this, you get to choose. And that's like, man, when there's too much freedom, when there's too much choice, that's terrifying. It's like,
Yeah.
yes or no is an easier, less fearful choice than, oh, you have 50 options. And it's like, man, absolutely. It's hard. It's hard making a choice, and it's hard. Okay, what am I going to be about now? I don't know. And there's so much pressure. Gosh.
And adding on to that, the fear of failure.
Absolutely.
If you have infinite options.
Yes.
I know that, like, one of the things that I have really struggled with in the past is I'm so afraid of failing that before I start, I want to ensure that that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And that can manifest itself as I'm going to do tons of research.
Yes.
I'm going to learn everything I can about something before it starts.
We talked about, man, the flip side of anxiety and excitement. It's like, man, this fear of, man, I want to look a certain way. You know, I want to be prepared. And so that, for me, and I'm a little bit more healthy about it now, but it's like constantly thinking about, okay, what about this? What about this? What about this? Okay, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if this happens? That was really helpful for me in football. I could think through all these scenarios, and then eventually in the game, your body takes over. That's like kind of like right now,
Yeah.
like in preparation for this. Here it is right here. So what did I do? So I wrote out this little, because I thought, oh, we're going to do this. I got to be prepared. So I wrote out, okay, how does this movie that we're going to talk about sync up with mental health counseling?
Yeah.
And so I was like forecasting, and I was writing stuff down, and I wrote like a list of 10 things. And so it's like, yeah, I got that prepare part, that like, yeah, I want to look this certain way. I don't want to look this certain way. It's like I have this part that, goes online and tries to help me out.
So do you think that during the medical management
Sure.
of it, that it was, let's just keep this thing at bay, and then when you kind of entered into your existential crisis, hey, I'm going to let this thing out the cage and face it and see what is it that I need to address?
Yeah, I don't know. I would say, man, I'd been on stuff for a long time. And it was helpful. And then I think I was probably still on that stuff, and it wasn't helpful. And so it's like, man.
Oh, that's interesting.
Gotta
Because
do
I was
something
kind of wondering,
different.
did the medicine stop, and that's what let you kind of figure I need to address this? Or
So I was on like generic Paxil, paroxetine for like 10, 12 years. Then I got off it. And then I got off it at the end of my career. So I was off it for like about 6 months, a year. And then stuff started to come back. So then I was doing intensive talk therapy, which was very helpful. So then stuff started to come back, tried a couple other things. Man, I didn't like the way they made my body feel. And so eventually got off those. And I was eventually able to, do enough healing work to get off the things. Yeah. And, man, I don't know. For me, in terms of the whole, no drug talk, man, it's like, for me, I'm going to take care of myself.
Sure.
And if something can give me some help, man, I'm going to try that. If to me, it's like, man, talk therapy can build these internal resources for us so where we can learn to cope. But if the fire's getting too high, man, I got to do what I got to do to help me, my wife, and my kids, and be here and be present. So, I'm going to do whatever it takes to help me.
Well, and you mentioned before, not knowing where something like that surfaces or is caused by.
Sure.
There's several reasons for depression. There's several reasons for anxiety.
Sure.
Some of them are circumstantial, like if your girlfriend breaks up with you, if your fiance decides not to go through with the wedding, if you get a divorce, these are things that it's perfectly normal to be depressed about.
Yes,
to be stressed, to be anxiety, and then there's also sometimes our brains produce too much of a hormone.
Sure.
And it's a completely biological, my life is going great and I am freaking out all the time and depressed. And there's absolutely no shame in having a medical way of addressing those things when you partner up with a psychiatrist and a doctor. And I know for a lot of people, I have a friend who came to me and was talking about their anxiety medication and was saying, hey, I'm not feeling like myself when I'm on this stuff. And I told him the same thing that I'll say now. You have a voice in your treatment.
Sure, absolutely.
You are working together with your doctor. And so if in the course of your medication management you feel like, I don't really feel like myself, go to your doctor. Tell him what you're feeling or what you're not feeling.
Yeah.
Because there's never just one medication and there's never just one dose.
Sure.
And they can manage those things with you. You don't have to just grin and bear it and think, well, this is my lot in life.
Oh, that's hard. And that's honestly one of the things that I learned, which was, man, it's healthy for short-term performance, but it's unhealthy for life, is like, man, fight through the pain. Tough it out.
Yeah.
Be a man. Fight through it, And that's so for learning how to tackle somebody, man, great strategy for having a sustainable, mantra through life. That's not very helpful for our internal world and the struggles that are inherent in life.
Yeah. You get hit on the field, you're drilled into you to get up, finish the game, next objective, go get it. And I would imagine, especially at such a high performance level that you were in, you're getting that drilled into you early on. And so often, frequency-wise, that it's tough to shake that as a, philosophy. Sure.
There's a saying, it's true, but it's like you can't make the club in the tub. So it's like you can't make the team if you're always hurt. And so it's like, man, you learn how to deal with injury in terms of, man, you better suck it up and you better keep going. We don't have time to deal with this thing. You got to perform. You got to perform now or else, out of here.
Yeah.
Not very helpful for long-term, sustainable, fulfilling life.
Yeah. And there's just such damage going on to your body as a natural part of that game that, who knows what guys are living with. That they're just telling themselves, this is a part of it. I can't stop to deal with this, especially when your livelihood's tied to it. Ugh. Wow. And so now you're doing this.
Which is... So this is funny. This career is like almost the exact opposite of professional football. I mean, it's like football attack, run through the wall. This is a game of violence and imposing your will on somebody else. And this counseling profession is about acceptance, like allowing it to happen.
Get in the tub to make the club.
Yes. Yes. Nurturing, healing, going slow, being patient. This is like, do it yesterday. What have you done for me lately? This is about allowing it to grow, allowing that plant to grow and allowing this beautiful thing to happen. It's so radically different. And it's taken me a while to wrap my head around,
Yeah.
Hey, David, let's slow down a little bit. Okay.
And I was wondering, as you were saying that, do you find yourself getting reverted back to maybe the old philosophies sometimes, where you got to kind of tell yourself internally, oh, wait, this person is going to move at a different speed than me. I need to.
Yes. Oh, so I learned to go fast for like 30 years. Go fast, go there now, and it takes a while. It's like, try your hardest. It's like, man, sometimes it's like, we got to wait for this thing to grow. We got to wait for this thing to happen. It's so challenging. Slow down, David, slow down. It's man, it's a challenge to trust the process.
Yeah.
For me. Very challenging.
Yeah. Do you think that if you wouldn't have learned that in your personal life, do you think you'd be able to do it in your professional?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
No.
It's a weird skill that's tied to your person so much.
Sure.
Like, to where if you don't go through some kind of transformation like that,
Sure. Yes.
then you're not going to be able to impart it to others.
Yes. And it's like, man, I'm so much a believer in like the person of the therapist. Like, we have to do our own work, and we have to we got to practice what we preach. Self-care, nurturing those parts of ourselves, giving ourselves allowance to, struggle and be okay, and constantly nurturing and picking ourselves back up and being kind to ourselves. That's the more we can do that for ourselves, the better connection we can have to ourselves, the better connection we can have to the people across
and
us.
offer ourselves self-compassion.
Sure.
Like, I know that it's something I will beat myself up all the time.
Sure.
Because maybe I'm talking to a client about this, that, or the other. I'm like, well, I don't have my stuff together. And then usually it's a person that I care about and that I love and that cares about and loves me that will sometimes gently, sometimes not, remind me like, hey, man, you're a person too.
Sure.
Like, you don't have to have it all together either.
Yeah.
And you have the chance to practice this stuff as well, and give yourself compassion, give yourself grace, and give yourself room to grow and to receive love and care from others.
Sure. It's awesome. Oh, it's beautiful.
But I think that sometimes I get caught up in a similar mindset in doing this. All right, I got to read those. I literally have like 13 books on my desk at home right now that I am planning on reading in order to dive deeper into a subject that I want to like make a seminar on and stuff like that. And sometimes when I get home, I'm like, all right, cool, tonight, 1 hour, 37 pages, boom. And then sometimes I get home and I'm just drained and I'm like, you know what? I need to sit on the couch with my wife and watch something funny.
Yeah.
And
oh, that's
laugh
great.
And bring the dog up in between us and let him flop on us and pet him and just be present and be a person.
Sure.
And that's okay.
Oh, that's great. Yes. I feel that, man. I have so many of I had to stop reading like counseling, psychotherapy books, because it's just like, man, I need to read. Let me read it like a short story book or something. It's like I had to pull back, because it's like, man, like, and I don't think it's not unhealthy to want to try and be a really great therapist. No, but when it can be like, oh, it's the only thing my vision is pointed on, I need to kind of pull it back a little bit.
Yeah. I know that one time I went and sat in my supervisor's office and I was saying how, I'm subscribed to 5 or 6 different podcasts about running a private practice. And some of them are about, the person of the therapist, and some of them are about the business of the practice, and some of them are about how to treat this particular thing. And she goes, what podcast do you listen to just for you?
Yeah.
And I was like,
that's
what?
great.
I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, yeah, like, what's a fun podcast? And I was like, I don't have time for what?
Yeah.
And it was something that when I walked out of her office just struck me so much. Like, oh, I get what she's.
Sure.
If you're not allowing any room in your head for just fun stuff that makes you.
Yeah.
Like I said before, just so much of this is just tied to our person. And if we're not being a whole person,
yes,
we can't be there for somebody else.
Sure.
And I keep relearning that over and over and over. I probably will for my whole life. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, man, you probably grew up in a performance oriented culture too. I mean, dude, this country it's like so performance oriented and success and money and like got to be successful. It's so like hardwired to that. And billionaire list, who's the top billionaire, and especially for men, it's like, man, what do you do for a living? It's
One of the first. Yeah.
Oh,
Hi, how
gosh.
are you? I'm Josh. What do you do?
Yeah, let me rank you on a scale. It's like, man, I was looking at ESPN, and it's like, man, so many ranking lists. Let's rank this the best draft classes all time, and then it's like, man, it's like ranked in hierarchies, and at the top equals success, and it's like, oh gosh, it's like I grew up in that. So many people grow up in that, and it's like, oh, it's draining. It's really draining. Do you feel that in terms of the counseling profession? Like, I'll go to places where people are talking, and like for me, when I was in the NFL, it's like, man, people everybody's prideful to a certain extent, So you could tell when guys were kind of trying to show out or kind of being like boastful or kind of trying to show this shiny part of themselves. And I swear there is a certain extent of people in this psychotherapeutic community who do that too.
Yeah.
And to me, I think, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, just I'm kind of aware of that just from my previous profession. But it's like, man, to me, like me and you being real here is way more therapeutic and way more of an inviting thing for clients than like, man, hey, I've got so many degrees. I've got all these technical skills. I'm the top at this. From my experience, I think people are just so desperate for realness and desperate for like, oh, I'm like you. No, we're kind of the same.
Yeah.
Do you see that at all in this profession?
Yeah, and I think I've got a real hang up when it comes to like, I have a private practice. I have to promote myself some way to get business.
Yes, yeah.
So that for me, there's this delicate balance between how do I do that. And also, it kind of makes me feel a little creepy.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if creepy is the right word, but like, I hate that. Like, if I could figure out a way to just let my work, which time will do this, but let my work speak for itself and people will just come, that's great.
Sure.
But you do have those people that are going to stand behind degrees, stand behind, oh, I wrote a book, I wrote an ebook, like I taught this or did that, and I've got a YouTube this or a, whatever. And I kind of look at that as, it feels like a wall. Like
me too. Yes. It feels like a veil. Yes.
What's the rest of your life? How do I connect with you as a person? Because the overwhelming majority of people don't have a book they've written. They don't have a YouTube channel or a podcast or a degree or whatever. They're just people that have problems. And when I sat with my guest last week, we talked about the difference between Me Too and just letting somebody, not the hashtag movement, but like being with a person. Yeah. Me too, I've experienced what you experienced, and just letting them know they're not alone. Yeah. Because like statistically, I can't experience everything that my clients have experienced. Yeah. Like, and I don't want to pretend like I can or I have. Yeah. Because that's not authentic. Sure. But I can let them know, hey, no matter what, I'm going to be here in this chair every week at the time that we've agreed upon, and you're going to quit before I quit. So I'm with you till the end of the line. Sure. And I just want you to know that. Yeah. And I think to show up every time and to be your true self. Yes, great. It's healthy attachment. It's forming a relationship that they know that they can depend on, and that they know that they can be themselves in. Because I feel like, at least with my personal work, as a client, if I wouldn't have been able to lean in and get in touch with my true self, like warts and all, I wouldn't have been able to get to where I am now and where I still want to be. Almost like when you pull up Google Maps on the phone, you got to know where you're at to get to where you're going to go. Absolutely. And you got to be real about that. Yeah. But I tell my clients this, it takes a lot of courage to really show up.
And to me, going back to what we talked about, like if somebody senses, oh, I'm with this real person who is very much similar to me, they're going to be way more comfortable sharing that. Mm-hmm. I yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm okay. And I don't necessarily think I was not okay with this at first, but the longer you practice, I think that this kind of develops in you. Just trusting the process and knowing, okay, the first session, I'm going to hear most of the story. And like any relationship that you have in your life, the therapeutic relationship between the client and the therapist takes time to develop.
Sure.
So there's going to be stuff that they tell you in week 1 and stuff that they don't tell you. And there's going to be stuff that they let out all along the way. And all they're doing is learning and deciding, can I trust this person?
Absolutely, yes.
To care for me, to be there for me. And I think a lot of that is, how do we respond when they tell us something that's vulnerable and,
Sure.
and deep? You know, do our eyes bug out of our head?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Are we shocked? Do we run out the room?
Sure.
Hopefully not. But I
Yeah.
mean, you know, or do you respond with, oh, wow, thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
I can imagine that was scary. I can imagine that was sad and tough to do. And I just want you to know that we're going to take that and walk forward together. And there's something about that just says, I'm here with you.
Oh, yes.
And those are the kind of people that I personally want to be around, and hopefully professionally I can be to somebody else.
Oh, so fulfilling. So fulfilling when you can be with people in their truest stuff.
Yeah.
So fulfilling.
So that kind of leads us to the movie.
Yeah.
What movie did you bring today?
Field of Dreams, Kevin Costner. What? This is like, what, 88, 89? I don't know.
89?
Yeah,
Yeah.
somewhere. Oh, man.
Yeah, it was still in his mullet days.
Okay. Great time for Kevin Costner, man. Great time.
Did you ever rock a football mullet?
No, I didn't.
No.
The sad thing about my hair history was I shaved my head all through high school. So I shaved my hair in my first year of college. So I had like peak hair experience for like 4 or 5 years, and I had bad haircuts the whole time.
Oh.
So I didn't even get to use my hair that I had, and now I got to shave it again because I'm bald, which is very sad.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, wow, it's very sad.
I think the classic football look is the mullet coming out the back
Really?
of the helmet.
Jim
Or
Mc-
like
yeah.
for us, like growing up in South Carolina, you know, USC had a quarterback, Steve Tannehill, and they would manufacture like hats with his ponytail.
Oh, that's
attached.
beautiful.
And so like while he was playing, that was the
yeah.
big selling thing in South Carolina was to get one of those.
Dude, I often joke with my kids that I should just grow out my hair and just have this elegant long tail. It'd just be so fashionable.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And if you're a little light on top, there's, you know, you got the skullet. That's a thing too.
Oh gosh, that would be just
Oh, man.
wonderful.
So what is it about Field of Dreams that sinks into you enough to where you're like, this is the thing I want to...
I was thinking about that the other day. It's like, man, why this movie? Oh, this movie is so sentimental to me. And so I'm like a boil it down type guy,
Yeah.
you know? And I think it just boils down to this connection of fathers and sons. And this dad and son had this kind of disconnect, this fracture. And for whatever reason, under the surface, there was this magical thing, this drive for connection. And then eventually they got to connect, and it's just beautiful. The scene in the end where it's like the music's playing and he just wants to have a catch with his dad. Oh, this is
Yeah,
so beautiful
that's-
to me as a father who has 3 sons. And it's just so beautiful to me. This thing about fathers and sons and this wild journey where he's got to take risks and put himself out there. And then it's like, oh yeah, this was all about this core thing for you. Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, so I've had this experience. This will be the 14th episode of the show, maybe 15th, something like that.
Yeah.
And I've had this experience where there's been some movies that my guest has picked and I've watched and I'm like, I don't know. Like,
Yes.
you know, either I'll say like right away, like, I didn't like that, or maybe
Yeah.
like I didn't get it. And as I was watching this one last night, I felt that a little bit going through it.
Sure.
Like as Leigh-Ann and I were watching it, I literally turned to her and was like, hey, what does this mean?
Yeah.
Like, where is this, you know? And then it wasn't until the end where which, you know, hey, if you're listening to this episode,
Spoiler
there
alert.
are spoilers, but also the movie came out 30 years
Yeah,
ago.
you shouldn't have to give a spoiler alert
So
to that.
at this point, when it's so ingrained and like practically every man who has engaged with movies or television
Sure.
since then. But yeah, spoilers. So like in the end, when he is able to, his dad shows up and like talk with him, it was like everything from the whole movie came together.
Yeah.
And so once the movie finished up and Leigh-Ann looked at me, she's like, so what do you think? I was like, I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. But for
Yeah.
9/10 of it, I would have said no.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
then that last little bit just tied it together so well. So when the movie starts, it's a voiceover, and it's kind of like a brief journey through his life.
Yeah.
And he talks about, he grew up. He didn't grow up in Boston. Where did he grow up at? He went to college at Berkeley,
Yes.
but I can't remember where. He grew up somewhere.
Yeah.
Then he said he picked a college as far away from
Yeah.
home as he could, which right there I was like, oh, okay. I kind of see where he's going to.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some kind of cutoff. There's some kind of, I got to get away from the family for some reason.
Yeah.
So he talked about the White Sox and how there was this period of time in 1913 or something like that.
Yeah,
where-
so Dad read him stories
Yeah.
growing up and told him bedtime stories. They connected around this thing of baseball, and the dad telling him stories about the White Sox and the scandal, the Black Sox scandal. Yeah.
And it really was a good expression of that connection between him and his dad.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so interesting. And like, I gotta say, the way that I grew up, like my mom and dad divorced when I was in early high school, and my dad grew up playing football in high school and was a very big sports fan. But because of when he left in my life, I didn't really get that, hey, here's an impartation of my love of sports through that. So I was telling my wife last night, everything I learned about football started with Joe Montana Football 94 on the Sega Genesis.
Beautiful.
And
Beautiful
like
game.
it was, I got the game, and
Yes.
that lit something in me
Yeah.
that then I began to seek out, okay, who's my team? Who do I love?
Sure.
What does that mean when they call that play? What's a route? Everything just stemmed from this. All right, I got to learn it myself.
Sure.
He had a relationship with his dad where when they spent time together, they were connecting
Yeah.
over the game of baseball.
Yeah.
And then he talks about he left, he went to college, he met his wife. And then at some point, he said that she talked me into buying a farm.
Yeah.
In Iowa or Idaho?
Iowa, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, it's the picture of them in front of the sign, and she puts up the sold.
Yeah.
And they start their life at this farm.
Yeah.
And then corn farm. And then I was honestly shocked at how quickly the voices started.
Really?
Because I just thought, okay, that's an intricate, from being vaguely aware of the movie my whole life, but never seeing it, it's an intricate part of the plot they're going to have to like build up.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a part at the end or something, an inciting incident. But like, no, like 4 or 5 minutes into the movie,
Yeah.
there's the voices.
Yeah.
And he just gets invited into contemplation, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, he just steps out of this routine to all of a sudden, what does this mean? What am I trying to
Sure.
get to here? And it starts him on this. I'm trying to think, if you build it, he will come. How does he get to it? Oh, he has a vision of the baseball field,
Yeah.
which I just thought, how does this guy not think he's crazy?
Yeah.
He's hearing a voice.
Yeah.
He's seeing a baseball field, and then he just goes for it,
Sure.
which at some point he's telling his wife, and this was something that my wife pointed out. She said, he said that his dad never did anything spontaneous
Yeah.
in his whole life. And he said, I'm afraid that I'm going to end up like him.
Yeah.
And so he starts going. So even right there, it's this comparison, maybe?
Yeah.
This is who I see my dad as,
Yeah.
and I don't necessarily want to be that.
Oh,
so I got to
gosh,
do something
yes.
different. Which is that a general thing with everybody? I don't know. It's
Man.
definitely a thing with me, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that's everybody's story.
I don't know. I was thinking about this when thinking about the movie. Everybody has mom and dad issues, like everybody, or whoever raised them, had mom or dad or guardian issues, and to like grow up and kind of be self-aware and realize, man, who do I want to be? How do I want to be different than my dad? How do I want to be the same as my dad? I think everybody has that.
Yeah. And for him, there was certainly I didn't know if it was him thinking my life is boring, so I have to do something different, like I hate my life, or if it was, I don't know, something inside of him going, you have a mission. You've got this next journey you've got to do.
Sure.
but whatever it was, it got him started. So he builds the field, and I don't know. I thought this was weird. All of a sudden, townspeople are showing up on the side of the road, literally just staring at it, taking pictures.
Yeah.
And you hear the little mumbles like, "Oh, this guy just tore down half his crop."
Sure.
You know, and then like I said, I'm going into the movie blind, so I'm talking to my wife, going, you know, I could get if he builds this field and then he starts a little league, or he builds the field to do something with it, but he builds this field, and all he is thinking is, if you build it, he will come. So I've just got to build it, and then I'll wait.
Sure.
And he'll show up, which I don't remember when he figured out the hill, but he builds it, and then there's times where he's sitting in the I don't know, breakfast nook or whatever in the house, just drinking coffee, staring out at the field. And then the wife's like, hey, you used up all our savings for this.
Yeah.
Like, we got to start thinking about this kind of thing. And then at some point, his daughter walks in and is like, hey, there's a guy out there.
They're stressing over bills. And it's like, not now. What's her name? Her name is Anne.
Karen.
Karen, yeah.
Which
Karen.
I thought.
Not now, Karen. And then she just says, there's a baseball man in the yard.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so great.
Yeah. Which I said to my wife, Karen's not a little girl name anymore. Yeah. Karen's like a full-grown lady name. Yeah. It's like Karen. That's my daughter.
Nobody gets named Karen anymore.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I feel like you got to name an adult that. So you're going to be Brittany as you grow up, and then when you're 20, we're going to switch it to Karen. Switch or something like that. But they walk out, and they meet this guy, and it turns out to be Shoeless Joe Jackson, which was one of his childhood obsessions, heroes. Like, he is just completely in awe.
Yeah.
And I don't think he knows if he's real, what he's doing there.
Yeah.
You know, and so he just starts talking with him, and Joe Jackson looks perplexed.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got here. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, but they have a conversation, and then what is it, like the next day, a couple other guys show up, and they run some practice, and then at some point or other, he's like, hey, can I bring some more people? Which you kind of get the idea from heaven or wherever.
Yeah.
Like, there's some others that want to come. Are you cool with? And he always answers so frankly, yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
As if it's like a businessman giving his approval. Yes, you can use my facility.
Sure.
You ghost. You premonition or whatever. And then at some point another message comes. So he's got the if you build it, he will come. And he did.
Yeah.
And then where did he get ease my pain or ease his pain?
He got that, and then that took him to Terrence Mann.
Yeah. But I can't even remember where he got the ease his pain. Maybe they were out on the field. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he gets another message.
Sure.
And then how did he get to Terrence Mann? Was it that he had...
So they were at the conference about banning books.
The PTA thing.
Yeah, the PTA meeting, which is a great scene. And then so everybody's talking about banning books, and he's writing on his thing. His wife is so pumped up. And then it comes to him, somewhere they were talking about a book about Terrence Mann.
Yeah.
And then boom, he has the epiphany. So then he goes and starts to research him.
He's at the library. He's got everything spread out on the desk.
Yes. This is the ultimate trust the process movie. It's like, man, this guy has this vision. He has this. He sees it. Mm-hmm. And then it's like he's taking these huge risks.
Yeah.
He's plowing under his main cash crop. And it's like, man, everybody thinks he's crazy. Nobody can see what he can see.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, he just trust, and it's scary for him. Trust the process.
Well, and he never gets a light shown upon the finish line.
Sure.
It's never a spotlight or a floodlight that he gets. It's a flashlight that shows him the next step, the next two steps. And so he hears, if you build it, he will come. He hears ease his pain. But he doesn't know where that's going to lead. He doesn't know ultimately this is going to result in this. He just knows, all right, here's my next one step.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he feels like I've got to do this so much as I feel a pull. Like, I never got the sense that it was a very concrete thing from him.
Sure.
It was just something's calling me out, and I want to, take that step. And when he gets the ease his pain thing, his wife, I think up till that point, okay, I'm in there,
sure, yeah.
or whatever. And then it's all of a sudden, I'm going to go to Boston. And she's like, hold up. Not quite. But then as they talk, she has had a dream as well.
It's a beautiful scene right
and
there.
and they're talking. She's sitting on the stairs. He's standing in front of her. They're talking, and then she expresses, "Oh, did you see this? Was
Yeah.
it this?" And she's like, "I had a dream that was that exact thing." And they just look at each other and they know,
Yeah.
all right, you're going.
Yeah.
So they run up the stairs, and he starts preparing, and he goes to Boston to meet. Was it in Boston?
Yeah. Try to get Terrence Mann on board.
Trying to get him up, which never met the guy, didn't know the first thing about him.
Elusive writer, like shut in for the past years.
Yeah, and I remember he even goes to a like a grocery store or restaurant because he knew that he went there, and he talks to the guy that runs it. He's like, "Hey, Terrence Mann, like I'm looking for this guy. Do you know?" And he goes, "Yeah, if you were a friend of his, wouldn't you know this already?" And he goes,
Yes.
"Yeah, fair." He literally just conceded,
Yes.
"Yeah, fair point." Like, and just kind of deals with it. But he shows up at his house,
Yeah.
knocks on his door, and tries to get him. I guess at first to just listen to his idea why he's there. And the guy just slams the door in his face, and he's like, "Listen, I'm done being a voice of a generation. I'm done leading. I'm done writing. I just want to be left alone in here doing what I want to." And he does not take no for an answer.
Sure.
Takes him to a baseball game at Fenway. And then while he's there, I mean, I think watching that scene, I thought, all right, so his mission's going to be Terrence Mann.
Yeah.
Like, he was brought here to draw something out of this guy, purpose, I don't know, invite him, He gets there, and he hears another voice.
Yeah.
So it was, if you build it, he will come, ease his pain, and go the distance.
Go the distance, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And as soon as he hears that, it's just this thing to him is like, all right, cool, got what I needed, next thing.
Yeah.
And he even tells him, like, all right, if you're ready to go, we can go.
Sure.
And he was like, what? Huh? And then I think that...
Well, he got that vision on the scoreboard of Doc Moonlight Graham with his one at bat, and then like hometown or something like that. So he got like that clarity.
Yeah. Yeah. And so him and Terrence Mann, James Earl Jones, he's walking through this journey with Darth Vader and Mufasa himself. They just get up and they're leaving. And he goes to drop him off at his place. And I think probably Terrence Mann was a little like, oh, I thought you were here for me and you seem done with me now. And I left to go with you, but now seemed like he felt hurt. And he gets out, and then somewhere he says something that indicates that he saw it too.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, did you get this message? Did you see this? And he's like, yeah, I saw it. And he's like, okay, here's what it means. I've got to go to Minnesota. I've got to meet this guy who did this thing.
Yeah.
And Terrence Mann's like, all right, I'm on board. Here we go. And they leave.
Yeah.
Which I couldn't help but think about, here he is, what was Kevin Costner's guy's name? I always forget character names in these things.
Ray.
Yeah. Here he is on this journey that he doesn't know what it's about.
Yeah.
He meets this other guy that's a part of it, invites him along, and now the other guy has made it his journey as well. And I couldn't help think about during those times where we are going through an existential crisis, where we are stepping outside of what we would consider is our normal day-to-day comfort zone, how much easier it is to do with other people.
Oh, so much easier. And it's like, I was thinking about that part too. It's like isolation is so hard for people. And like we were talking about earlier about the feeling of I am alone is so inherently painful for people. And then to sit across from somebody and have the other person be like, I understand. Like basically Terrence Mann was saying like, no, I see what you're saying. I saw it too. And so it's like, man, from then on, it's like instant connection. No, I see what you're seeing too. It's like, yes, aloneness is for everybody, for me, so hard to deal with. Isolation, very, very challenging. But when somebody is like, that's why teams are so great. Oh, that's why, man, so great to be on teams. Be
shared
connected.
Experience.
Yes. And it's like, man, you can go through even the most hard, challenging things in life when you have somebody with you, and when you have somebody with you who understands. It's like it makes the pain and the struggles that are inherent in life so much
easier to bear.
Yes,
because you're not bearing it by yourself.
Sure.
Like you got one set of shoulders, maybe you could get that weight up.
Yeah.
If you got two, there's a better chance.
Sure.
And I think back, it's interesting. There's an interesting contrast between Terrence Mann and his wife, because I think Terrence Mann and him, they had this kind of shared experience and mission kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I think, and we were talking about this as we were walking the dog after we saw the movie last night. My wife kind of brought up, I don't know if I like the wife in this movie.
Really?
And I was like, really? What is it about? And really the more we started fleshing out, she just felt like, other than the beginning where you saw the pictures of their family, and there was like a couple pictures where it was a birthday or something, but you could tell, oh, she's got a little spunk in her. She's a little spicy. And then in the PTA meeting, it's like, oh, okay, she has got a little, in her. But she was saying, even except for those things, the wife really doesn't even need to be in the movie, because she has no agency in what's going on. And so we were wrestling through, okay, well, it's Ray's story, so it's his journey. So, and it was the late 80s. So, like, I mean, would the other side of that have been they give the wife her own story, they give her more of a say? I don't know. But I think with Terrence, he was with Ray because they had a shared experience. With the wife, I wonder if it's just that commitment, that I love you, that I'm with you, I believe in you. And yeah, she did have the dream, but she really turned him loose and had faith that he was gonna, I don't know, not completely ruin their life and eventually come back. And, like the doctor a little bit later on, he would always say, I got to get back home before my wife thinks I have a girlfriend.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see the different types of support that he gets.
Absolutely.
The person who links arms with him because he's doing it with him, and the person who says, I just have ultimate faith in you.
Yeah.
And I believe in you, and I trust you, and do this thing.
Sure. Oh, it's so great. Get somebody who cares for you and is there to support. And he was out doing this crazy stuff. She was grinding at the farm, trying to hold off on the sale of this farm, this like thing that was like so risky. And she was there to support him. Oh, it's great. Yes.
Oh, and her brother.
Yeah.
When he shows up, I was like, wait, did this guy have any reason to be there other than to say, you're going bankrupt, you better sell this? Like, did he stop by for a holiday and then found that out? Or
to me, it seemed like he was the voice of like the cynical, the skeptical, the voice of like, come back to reality, snap out of it, don't take this risk. There's nothing there, and then it's refreshing that he's able to eventually kind of finally see this thing.
And I think that there had to be some kind of conflict or something coming down on Ray where this thing wasn't as easy as just driving to meet the next person. There needed to be some pressure.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And I guess that he was the inciting thing for that.
Sure.
And then, of course, when he's on the farm, the brother, and steps out and they're at the field, I started thinking, oh, he's going to see the baseball players and get it. And he doesn't. Yeah. And I was like, oh, man. Yeah. How's he not just going to have Ray, I don't know, put away or something?
Yeah.
For sure. Because he doesn't get it. He's not in on the story, not in on the mission. Yeah. All he knows is I love my... And that's interesting, too. I think he's kind of framed as the bad guy a little bit. But really, and I think one thing that's said in our profession a lot is everybody makes sense in the context of their own story.
Yeah.
It's all coming from a place of just fear that his sister's family's going to go bankrupt, lose everything, lose the house, and be homeless or something.
Sure. Oh, he's got great intentions.
So he's trying his best just to care.
Yes. It's interesting that it's like, man, Ray versus, I forget that guy's name, but the brother. Mm-hmm. It's like one is like concrete, realist, like, nope, don't take this risk. The other guy's like, man, I got to take this risk. I'm gonna live in this fantasy, like, huge thing, and the kind of push and pull between that. Which, man, in this profession, like we were talking about earlier, taking risks and the ability to kind of like be creative and dream and kind of walk into those dreams. And also the part of ourselves that says, wait up, hold up. I'm not sure about this. I'm afraid of this, so interesting. These dual parts of ourselves that show up,
which, spiritual root system and all, I mean, fear, the alert that there's danger, sure. The gift of that being faith and wisdom. The impairment of that being rage. So even to lean into your fear, to engage, what is it that I'm afraid of, you have the chance to get so much from that can add to your life.
Sure.
Fear's not always a bad thing.
Yeah.
One thing, so our common friend, Todd Wormers, one thing Todd told me a long time ago was he made a difference between fantasy and imagination. And I think especially, like, he works a lot with people with sex addictions. I work a lot with people with sex addictions. In both cases, we're talking about maybe, I don't want to say make-believe, but certainly, like, you are creating a world that isn't necessarily reality. But he said, you know, when you lean into fantasy, it's to escape.
Sure.
So I'm doing this because I'm running away from something. When you lean into imagination, it's because it's to engage, it's to create. So imagination, you know, part of the image of God that he's put into us to say, there's something that's not there. I want to make it be there. I want to add to. Versus fantasy, there's something there that I don't want to engage with, and I got to get away from it. And that's something that very much felt true for Ray in this. It was, you know, there is something mysterious, magical, whatever it is, but he's coming at it from a place of, I'm not running away, but rather I'm pursuing, I'm trying to create, I'm trying to add to. And I think it's something that I think is such a big part of my personality too. And I try to encourage with my clients, you know, hey, your interior, the part that's in you that maybe you have an image or something that you believe could be real, just because you don't put your hand on it yet doesn't mean it's not worth pursuing, because in the pursuit you can find yourself, which is definitely a part of Ray's story.
Sure.
He gets the go the distance message, and him and Terrence leave, and they get on the road, and they go to Minnesota.
Yep.
Somewhere. And what was the doctor's name?
Doc Moonlight Graham.
Moonlight Graham, yeah. So they track him down.
So they're looking for him in this town, and they go to this, the writer of this town, the reporter, and we're looking for Moonlight Graham. And she goes, unfortunately, he's been dead for like 10, 15 years. And so they're like, man, what's going on? And so they kind of go back to their motel room or whatever. James Earl Jones gets a call. Somebody's saying he's gotten kidnapped or whatever. So,
oh no, he sees in the paper.
Oh, okay, in the paper. Okay, so then he's like, I got to call my mom.
Reported,
yes, yes. And so then Ray goes out, and so he just sort of walking along. I love the play in terms of the past and going back into the past.
So the doctor was dead?
He was dead, yes.
I must have got up to go to the fridge during that part because I didn't.
You might have, yes. So anyways, he goes walking around, and then he sees the doctor. The doctor's walking around there, and so he's like, talks to him, goes in the doctor's shop, talks to him, blah, blah, blah. And the doctor's saying, no, I can't go with you. I'm sorry. My work is here. And then it's like in 1972 or something. So he goes back.
That's right.
And then he knows.
Godfather.
Yes.
And he scratches the dirt off the license plate.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they're like, man, maybe we're on a wrong turn. So then they start driving back in their Volkswagen. And then they pick up a hitchhiker. And Ray's like, I need all the karma I can get. So they pick up this hitchhiker wearing these old clothes or whatever. And, hey, what's your name, kid?
Arthur Graham.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
He's like, friends call me Moonlight or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And then they're, oh, that's a beautiful part. And then they're like.
Well, there's the part in the doctor's office, too.
Yeah.
And as Ray's talking to him, and he's like, I got to ask you a weird question. Like, if you could go back or something, like if you could do anything with your life, what would it be? And he's like, I've always dreamed, of staring down a major league pitcher and winking at him to let him know, well, I know something you don't know.
Sure.
That kind of thing. So then they pick him up, the younger version of him.
Yeah.
And are they heading back home at that point?
Yeah, they go home.
Yeah, they're heading home. He's with them. And when they get there, like, not only are the whole, White Sox team there, but they've brought other teams.
Yes.
Because they're like, hey, all these other guys heard about it. And at one point they said something about Lou Gehrig or something. It's like,
no, Ty Cobb. It was
Ty Cobb.
Yes.
Yes. He's like, I didn't like that guy in life. I'm not going to bring him here. Which I just thought about the Tommy Lee Jones movie when he played him. Yeah. I had that image in my head. Tommy Lee Jones seems like a pretty gruff guy. I don't know. Maybe Ty Cobb was that way too. But Arthur Graham jumps right in. He suits up.
Yeah.
And then you have this scene of the game and all of, he gets up to bat and he's staring down this pitcher and he winks at him. And the guy just tries to take his head off.
Straight to his ear hole, yes.
Oh, man. Did you have any moments like that on the field?
Probably. It wasn't like...
What did you play?
Defensive end.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, the closest... So that never happened because that's you're not staring at a guy in the eye.
Yeah.
And then, people are trying to hurt each other sometimes when it gets out of control. But it's never to the point of... Like one time, so we're playing, this was 2009 preseason, we're playing the Dallas Cowboys, going against a guy named Flozell Adams. So they called Flozell, a nickname for him was Flozell the Hotel. So he was like 6'7", 6'8", like 370. So anyways.
What are you? You're not
at the time I was like 255, yeah.
Okay.
So 6'5", 255. So like, and this is not like how it had happened. This is kind of how it could hurt in professional football, like nothing like guys throwing at your head, but guys trying to hurt you. So, okay. So guys, who was it? Backup quarterback snaps it, quick pass. I jump in the air. So I'm getting airborne. And then Flozell the Hotel grabs my pads and then he pile drives me into the ground. And so it's like pain, major pain. And so like on the Jumbotron in Dallas State, the new stadium, first preseason game of the new stadium, they show that on replay, and everybody's like, oh, he just pile drive me into the ground.
Gosh.
Very vulnerable position. So, yeah, that doesn't happen a lot, like guys trying to hurt each other like that. That happened in that game, which was very painful.
Was there anything in you that was like, next play, I'm coming after you?
No.
I don't know. If a guy's bigger than you, I don't know if you're ever going to
Sure, and it's like, man,
guy.
you can't really go after guys like that. It's like, man, because when you're going after guys on defense, like you're not going to make a play. Like you got to go make a play on the ball to make the team. So going like trying to start stuff with O-linemen, man, you're taking yourself out of making plays. So it's like not smart.
Which at that point you'll get taken out of the game.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And so this game happens between these two teams.
Yeah.
And while the game's going on, the brother comes back. Yeah. And I think at this point, I don't know if Ray knows what it's about yet.
Yeah.
He just at this point knows I'm just still walking forward. I'm being faithful to what I think I'm supposed to be doing. I'm walking forward. I brought Arthur here. I brought Terrence here. We got all these baseball players here that are playing. He and his wife and Karen, his little girl, are sitting up in the stand, and the brother comes up. Still doesn't see the baseball players. And he's got like a contract or a deed or something in his hand.
Sign over the house to the bank.
And I think he said something about you're already out of money.
Yes.
So at this point, just sign this so you can still live here.
Yeah.
Because this is my sister and I love her and I don't want you guys to, So there's this, and then the daughter starts to say something about the baseball players, and he like picks her up.
Well, okay, so before that, this intense part of like, are you going to like chase your dreams or are you going to face reality? So this big dichotomy of like, man, hey, the bank is going to foreclose on your house and you're still trying to take this risk and you have this belief. And so it's like this speech of like, the baseball players are watching this whole thing go down. James Earl Jones, Thomas Mann is right there. And so like, it's like, man, are you going to do this or are you going to do this? And it's like heightened intensity. And so like,
you feel like it's a major decision in this guy's
yes.
life.
And so he does not know what to do. And so eventually he says he chases his dreams. And so
he repeats the messages, doesn't he? If you build it, they will come, or he will come.
Yeah, I think Thomas Mann was saying that. But anyways, it was like, so he's like, no, I'm not selling. He has to make that decision. And then brother's like, man, you're crazy.
He goes off.
Yes. And he's like, you turned your wife or your daughter or something like that. Falls down.
He like picks her up and then she falls from the top of the bleachers to the ground.
Yes.
And when the camera looks down, they make that, I don't know, soap opera, whatever sound effect, like dun
yes.
like this.
Yes.
And I thought, did this movie just kill the daughter?
Yeah.
What? I did not think that this was the kind of movie that. So they jump down.
For me, when I'm watching that, that's like, so I'm already in the movie and it's like heightened intensity. And then the sound, like I'm big on like sounds and drama. So I'm like heightened. And so it's like everything's coming to this culmination.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? The wife's rushing in because she's like, mom, support role. I'm going to go call an ambulance. And then, oh gosh, this is beautiful. So then Ray looks over and sees Moonlight Graham. And he's like, no. And something told him no.
Oh, and he's like standing behind a bunch of other baseball players, but
Yes.
still kind of looking, and they kind of make this
Yes.
connection.
And he says no. And then it's like this leap of faith. Oh, this movie is so great because it's like so much about like taking this belief in this thing, this core inside you. And then Moonlight Graham comes over and then saves the girl. And
Well,
then
he comes to so there's a thing where the
Yeah.
baseball
The
field is like a
rocks.
barrier.
Yes.
So several times during the movie, Shoeless Joe will like walk up and say like, "Oh, I can't cross this
Yeah.
thing." Moonlight Graham walks up to the edge of it, and you look down and it sees his shoes, and then you look up, and he decides to step over, and when he does, he becomes older Dr.
Yes.
Graham,
Yeah.
and then comes up and like examines the girl and says
Yeah.
something like, "Oh yeah, she's choking on a hot dog."
Yeah. Poor girl's choking to death. I can recite this movie because I've seen it so many times. And so then he saves her, and then the brother sees the guy. He's like, what the heck's going on? And then the brother's like, we can't sell this farm. And then it's like Moonlight Grant. They realize, oh, he can't go back. Moonlight can't go back.
He can't become the baseball playing
Yes.
version again.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful.
And then he says something like, "That's okay. I got to get home before my wife thinks I
Oh,
have a girlfriend."
beautiful.
I think he
Yes.
says that line again.
Yeah.
It's interesting that at that point the brother can see the baseball players. And
Yeah.
I wonder if it's this. All of us have moments or times in our life where we have trouble believing,
Yeah.
whatever the belief may be. But we have trouble having faith. We have trouble stepping out, taking a risk.
Sure.
When you see somebody else do it, or even when you take the babiest of baby steps, it's almost like it unlocks something.
Yeah.
And so it's like the brother being present for
Yeah.
Ray's moment of faith. It unlocks something in him
Yeah.
to where I think he, I don't know, gains the ability to have faith, and that's what allows him to see,
Sure.
where do these baseball players come from? When
Yeah.
these guys get here?
It's yes, and for me that strikes a chord because it's like if it's tangible, like I can believe it.
Yeah.
If I can touch it, if I can see it actually happening, I can believe it. I can put some stock into it. And so this brother finally sees it's actually, oh yes, there it is. You know, very challenging to not see it, take someone's word for it, you know, versus experience it for yourself.
Yeah.
Very challenging.
And he has the deed or the whatever it was, and he kind of, oh, we're not selling this.
Yeah.
We're not, and he's fully on board for the mission.
Sure.
And so, the baseball players, basically walk up, thank Ray. Thank you so much for letting us
Yes.
do this. This is great. Can we come back? And he, matter of fact, yeah, you can come back.
Sure.
Yeah, he's a bunch of ghosts. Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, you can come
Yeah.
back anytime you want. And as they begin to kind of clear out, there's one guy, baseball player left packing up his gear, who's like bent over.
Yeah.
And one thing, when Ray and Terrence were in the van as they were coming back home, he starts to talk more about his dad. This is the part I forgot about. And he starts to say basically, the conflict, the cutoff, the disconnect that they had. And I can't remember what the inciting incident was, but I remember that he said, basically, I wanted to hurt Dad. And so when I was 17, I said, how can I trust a guy whose hero was a crook? Just basically his dad through baseball had poured his heart out to his son throughout his son's childhood.
Yeah.
And so when it came time and he really wanted to hurt his dad, he went straight back to this connection that he knew they had.
Yeah.
And really the peak of that connection was their mutual admiration of Shoeless Joe. And so he just struck right at the nerve and said, that guy's a crook. And because he's a crook and you love him, how could I trust you? And he says he left.
Yeah.
And then he says, and then he had the nerve to die before I could ever say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Which is such an interesting line there because even still feeling the hurt of that disconnection and that yearning for healing, he had the nerve to die before I could get what I wanted. Still just kind of blaming his dad a little.
Sure.
So when the baseball players clear out, this one guy's left.
Yeah.
And he stands up and it's his dad.
Yes. Oh, so beautiful. So, you sparked my mind into thinking about, so I'm thinking about, you told me about this movie. So the dad was able to connect in this specific way, that the dad knew how to connect with.
Yeah.
And so the son saw that. I think from where I think about it, it's like the son yearned for a different type of thing. In this world, I swear, doing my own work, it's like I internalize connection as a certain type of thing, like a certain type of way that I kind of.
You've got your formula.
Yes. And I'm kind of growing up in my process of, you know what? Maybe everybody doesn't connect the way I do. Maybe people connect a different way. That's like revolutionary to me.
It's not.
It's
just
revolutionary.
You. It's not just you. It's everybody. Because I think that we develop in ourselves. Earlier we talked about those mental models.
Yeah.
And we have a model for even connection.
Yes.
Which after the movie was over and Leigh-Ann and I were talking, you have the scene of playing catch, and she's like, are you going to play catch with our son? And I had this thought of, okay, so Ray and his dad, the string that tied them together was baseball.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not a baseball guy.
Sure.
So I was like, am I going to connect with our son? Of course, but it might not be by throwing a ball.
Yeah.
For me, like, I'm a musician, I'm an artist, I build stuff. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm going to buy my kid a guitar and teach him that. Maybe I'm going to teach him how to build a bookshelf. Maybe I want to take him to the movies. But whatever it is, it's that I have an idea. My dad had an idea.
Yeah.
Ray's dad had an idea, and Ray wanted that connection.
Yeah. Yeah, it's finding out how people connect and how it's different for everybody. It's like it's pretty. I've just been learning this the past couple of years. It's very like, oh yeah, this, like, even with me and my dad's relationship, it's like, man, he connects in a certain different way than I do. I'm very like physical touch oriented, closeness oriented, like talking, going deep oriented. And it's taken me a long time to get to this place. He's learned to do it a different way, and he is dad's very intellectual, and dad's very like, dad's like task chore oriented. He'll come to our house. He'll just do he'll clean, he'll help out, it's taken me a long time to see, you know what? Dad
Acts of service.
Yes, Dad is trying to connect in this way.
My mom's the same way.
That he knows. Maybe it's like story in my head. Maybe it's not this thing. Maybe he's trying to do it this way. It's taken me, and that's very helpful for me because I can see, the thing I desire, that maybe there's a little disconnect there. Maybe you're looking in the wrong place. Maybe the connection is elsewhere. It's so. That lessens the intensity of the sting of whatever happens.
Well,
to
and
people.
how do we shift as people from, I've got to get it the way that I know to get it, and I've got to accept this person in front of me, no matter who they are, which the closer they are to you, the tougher it is.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I've got to accept them for the person that they are. Like, in the same way that I'm a person, which, I'm 38 right now. I think back when my dad was 38, him and Mom had me when he was 26. Yeah. So when he was 38, he had a 12-year-old. And I'm thinking, the person that I am now and knowing what I know and being who I am, if I had a 12-year-old, oh man, I would be doing my best, but I'd be so scared and just like not knowing, what do I do next, that kind of thing. So how do I get to a place where I accept my dad as a person for who he is? Oh. And so because of that, in his desire to connect, not demanding, hey, no, if we're going to connect, it's got to be you come with me to do this thing, or you use these words, or you do it at this time. But just, he's a person the same way that I am.
Yes.
And he's got virtues and deficits, and he's going to try, and he's going to fail, and he's going to succeed. And how do I just meet that individual person?
Sure. In
the same way that I do for anybody else? And that is, when it's a loved one, a lot tougher.
So challenging. Gosh, so challenging.
Your understanding of connection, did it change? So, like, I always know that we've got work we can do with our parents. How much did it change, and how did it change when you had kids?
That's a good question. Kids, for me, are a great way to understand how I am, my rough spots, and also the spots that are like, how do I say this? Like my kids can just, I get a reflection of, man, they're really finding a lot of joy from me right now. They're really getting a lot of nurturance right now for me. And on the flip side, oh man, my kids are really having a hard time with me right now. So being a person who like really kind of goes into, man, self-awareness and how I'm impacting my kids, man, I swear my job as a dad, it's like, I take that. I want to be the best nurturing force for these kids. So it's like, man, I got to step back and look, oh man, I've been a butthead to my kids today, And so they force me to be like, man, you know what? Cause I care about them. I got to say sorry. I gotta admit mistakes. I got to try to provide structure and like, man, constantly focusing on, okay, how can I lead a little bit differently? How can I be with them? It's a mirror into like, man, who I am and how I'm doing things and how my behavior is affecting other people. Cause kids are so honest. Gosh, they'll be honest. And if not with their words, with their behaviors and how you are affecting them.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of humility in that.
Oh, it's great, man. So for me, oh gosh, my relationship with my dad and my mom is all over how I relate to my kids, good and bad, man. Like we talked about earlier, the stuff that I saw that I love from my dad, I take that. The stuff that was unhealthy, I try to shy away from that. So much. These boys are like so important and special to me, and it's like, man, I want them to know that, man, there's somebody there who loves them unconditionally, and it's like, I don't know, it's from my own process.
It's that safe harbor. You want to let them know, go out, explore, and know that you've got the security back here.
Sure.
No matter what.
Yes, absolutely.
Win or lose.
Absolutely. And I don't know, I just feel this intense connection to them and want to help them be men of values and like know that they're loved, and job as a parent is extremely hard and not easy and, man, frustrating and beautiful and all that stuff.
Yeah. At the end where he is having a catch with his dad, I think it's really where this whole thing kind of tied together for me, and I realized he had something inside of him at the beginning which past trauma, through the breaking of a relationship, whatever it was that was unresolved, and that he was really looking for a way to forgive himself and engage in connection with his dad again. And so at the end where he's having that catch is where I kind of realized, oh, that's what this has been about. Sure. He had this unresolved thing with his dad, and as he got invited on this journey, it was all to get to a place where he could forgive himself for hurting his dad intentionally and breaking that relationship and then reconnecting. And I don't know. I mean, it's a movie. So, like, I don't know if in the world of the movie, is that an actual physical real thing that's happening, or is that internal inside of Ray where he's just reconciling, oh, man, Dad, I'm so sorry. Which, I mean, in our work all the time, there are physical reconciliations that we can see happen. Yeah. And sometimes we have to be with a client and do something that's kind of abstract because maybe the person they need to reconcile with isn't around anymore. Yeah. You know, maybe that relationship after it was broken, there's not a way to, in reality, reconcile it. And so we have to do, you know, some interior work to kind of get to the place where we are able to forgive or help somebody forgive. And then I think the daughter had some idea like, oh yeah, people will come here to the farm and they'll want to, because this is just a weird baseball field in the middle of nowhere and something is going to pull them here. And if they do come here, we can say, cool, yeah, you can look around, $20 a pop. And then after the catch, the camera starts pulling out. Yeah. And you see this, what looks like an infinite line of cars.
Beautiful.
Which I said to my wife, like, wouldn't it have been a better experience for them if they came during the day to like look around and that kind of thing? And she's like, oh, they'll probably invite them back the next day.
Sure.
That'll be. But I'm sure that through that, they got the money for the mortgage.
Sure. Absolutely.
What a beautiful ending. The thing with his dad. Oh my God.
That makes, this movie. And this is, man, my dad's all over this podcast right now. So it's like my dad, he would watch movies and he would watch old movies, and he would just like cry so much. And he would, besides that, would not show a lot of sad emotion.
Wow.
He'd show anger. He'd show rage. He'd show
nothing vulnerable.
Nothing vulnerable. He'd show happiness. That was how my dad, and I'm still kind of trying to process this, would kind of connect to his heart part.
Yeah.
And it's like this movie and this dad connection and this like desire to connect is all over it for me. When he says, "Hey, Dad, want to have a catch?" Oh, that's just like so beautiful to me.
Yeah.
And I cry every time. To me, that's like, it's like, "Dad, let's connect. Dad, do you love me? Dad, I love you." All that stuff is so beautiful.
It's easy at that moment for us to put ourselves in Ray's shoes as
Sure.
that vulnerable kid
Yes.
who just wants that connection with their
Yes.
dad. You yearn for it.
Yes.
Completely natural,
Oh.
completely good thing to have inside of you to want that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he got a chance when he had lost it before.
I had this question as I was thinking through that. Have you ever had a client who has not had some sort of issue with mom or dad?
No.
Me neither.
Yeah.
And like, man, usually some like people come in and not in a scoffing way, but like we'll start talking about mom and dad. No, I had a great relationship with mom and dad. And like inside I'm like kind of like semi giggling. It's like, man, we're okay. We're going to start talking about stuff, and there's usually like with every person, I believe there's wounds there for mom and dad or caregiver or whoever. So I was just wondering, have you ever had where you didn't talk about mom and dad and their impact in some kind of...
No, which I mean, part of what I do is I will draw genograms for each client.
Okay,
So like, I mean, cause I'm an MFT. So like I fully believe in order to resolve something that's peeking its head up now, we got to go back.
Yes. Oh, you have to. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've had clients go like, nope. I've already talked about that with other people. And I'm like, okay. So just to let you know, we're going there.
Yeah.
We're going to get there eventually. So you can either fight me now and surrender later, or,
Sure.
just surrender right now. But what's interesting is, especially when you do a genogram, you look back over at least 3 generations, you can see whatever surfaces between client and their parents to go back one more and to see, oh, there's some stuff there too. And it's this family legacy that's just moving down the line. And it's one of those things where the knowledge of that doesn't, it just in the knowing doesn't fix anything.
Yeah.
But it's a way of going, oh, my family are people too.
Yeah.
So just almost like a way of seeing them through the filter of compassion.
Yeah.
And being able to offer grace, forgiveness, compassion to the people that we've maybe had resentment towards in the past. And I think by engaging that way, forgiveness is easier to slip in of the self and of the loved one. But yeah, we've all got, I mean, because we were raised by people.
Absolutely.
And they were raised by people.
Yeah.
And I think that knowing, like I said before, like thinking of my dad at 38 trying to raise a 12-year-old. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like he might have got some stuff wrong, but if I think of him where I'm at, it's a lot easier to go, oh, you did it. You did the best you could.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you made the effort. Like, rather than, because I mean, there's times where if I hit a difficulty now, as much work as I've done, there's times where I think, oh, maybe I could just get in the car and drive away.
Sure.
But then just going, no, that's not what I want to do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. I'm so glad that you wanted to do this movie.
This is great. Oh, this is like
Yeah.
one of my favorite movies.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
So much of my story.
Do you have it? Do you own it?
No.
It's on Hulu for free if you have Hulu.
Oh, wow.
That's how
I
we
don't
watched
have
it.
Hulu, but
Yeah. Get a password from somebody that does.
sure.
Do it that way. Well, Dave, so let's say that somebody was listening to today and they just feel like, man, I feel like I can really connect with him. I'd
Sure.
love to see him as a client. How can they get a hold of you?
Phone number or email. So 615-212-9235. And then right now I'm building the website. So this is a temporary email, but I check it all the time. davidballcounseling@gmail.com.
Okay.
And so, yeah. And work primarily with 3 unique populations. So adolescent boys. So like 12 to 20. That's right in my wheelhouse, man. Athletes of some form or fashion, high school, college, pro athletes, and then professional men, usually like 24 to 45-ish are my 3 kind of niches that I'm working with now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you know a guy named Rob Fitzpatrick? He's a counselor here in town.
I might have heard of him.
So he's at Refuge, and he specializes in working with teen boys as well.
Sure.
And he's been doing it. I just met him for coffee. He's going to be on the show like next week, I think.
Awesome.
And I just met him for coffee the other day and just got to hear about how he got to that population. And it's great. I got to hook you guys up. Yeah. Nice. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Dude, it's great.
It has been absolutely fantastic to talk with you. Can't wait to have you back.
I know. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hi, birthday girl.
Hi.
It is your birthday today.
You know, I almost forgot. I actually really did. I had to pick up something from the pharmacy. Well, can we be honest that we're recording this not on my birthday?
We're recording it on your birthday eve.
Yes. So I went to the pharmacy earlier today to pick something up,
I did not know this.
And the lady, they ask for your birthday, like to look up your prescription. And so I told her, and I was just standing there, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, happy birthday." And I completely forgot. I was like, huh? I totally forgot my birthday's tomorrow. So thank you for reminding me again.
So it's your birthday. If you found the genie's lamp and he offered you one birthday wish, what would your birthday wish be?
Honestly, right now, if I found the genie lamp and I had a wish, it would be that we would be in Boston with our brand new little baby nephew.
I want to look him in the eye and shake his hand and say, "Nephew."
With your finger.
Yeah.
His little teeny baby hand.
Nephew, what kind of man are you? Tell me about yourself.
He likes eating. We know that.
It's true. Tell me about your thoughts on David and I's conversation and on Field of Dreams. By the way, Field of Dreams, a movie that you said you had a special place in your heart for.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like I got left out on growing up with Field of Dreams. Like this was my first time watching it.
I know. Very sad that it was your first time watching it, but you really liked it, which I was happy about.
I did, but not until the end.
That's true. Yeah, my dad and my brother both love this movie, and so just sort of by existing in their household, I also grew up loving this movie and quoting it and all of that good stuff. So watching it again was really fun, and it's been a while since I've watched it, so highly enjoyed. Really fun just looking back on, I think, like both like memories of watching it and all the stuff that it kind of means and like depicts in kind of the romance of baseball and things like that, because my brother played baseball growing up, so there's just a lot of memories tied up. So the interview and hearing about kind of David's story and his answer to why therapy, as he was talking about just like the world that he grew up in and it being really achievement and performance oriented, and he kind of mentioned that some of the frameworks of, I don't know how to like word this, but like the framework of people who are in the sports world and the coaches and kind of the framework that is put onto players who as they learn and kind of grow up in the sports world can be really lacking in like empathy and coping skills for tough emotional things. He said that a phrase, I had never heard this phrase before, but I guess it's a common one that he said from like the sports world was, "You can't make the club if you're in the tub," which I thought I liked. I thought it was like a funny phrase, but also made me kind of sad. Just as he was talking about that and like his sort of transition from that world into the counseling world, it made me think a lot about toxic masculinity and the conversations that you and I have had around that. Just that and I mean, not to say that, women in the sports world don't experience that, because I'm sure they do, but It just, a lot of the things he said really made me think, oh, I think those are so many of the things that young men get taught and get kind of drilled into them, that like, you know, don't cry, don't show emotions, like, even having anxiety, like you just deal with it, man up. There was just a lot of toxic masculinity kind of woven into the things that he was talking about, I thought. So the wife in the movie, you brought up my, I don't know, my feelings on her, which this is another reason that it's really funny watching sometimes these movies that you loved in childhood as you're an adult.
Oh, wait. Somebody told me something today, and I think it's appropriate here.
Mm-hmm.
You felt some kind of way about the wife.
I don't get it.
That's just what somebody said to me today. They were like, I feel some kind of way.
Oh.
And I was like, go on.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I felt some kind of way. So it just was I don't know. I think when you guys talked about it, I was like, ooh, I should explain my thoughts. Because it felt like, oh, they're not a team. She is literally just there to say, sure, do whatever you want. There was like one moment of pushback, and then even then she had they had the same dream or whatever, and so then she was all for it. So I think there was just this weird tension in me watching that was going, oh yeah, that's so great. She's so great. But then also going, wait a second. She just let him blow their whole savings. They have a daughter. They're literally going to lose their house. Like, there was just something in me that kind of had a hard time with that. And also, besides that scene of her in the PTA meeting where she gets real spunky, I felt like that showed us, oh, she's got some sass. Like, she's got some character. Where was that for the rest of the movie? Like, where was that in her relationship with him and in her, I guess, participating in this story?
The Bechdel test is something that was developed in order to point out the, I guess, maybe misrepresentation of women in stories and movies and such. So, I mean, I looked up, what exactly that is. It's 3 questions to ask about a movie. The first being, does it have 2 or more women in it who have names? The second question is, do they talk to one another? And the third question is, do they talk to one another about something other than a man? And it just says many movies don't pass this test.
I don't think Field of Dreams passes it.
It doesn't. It fully doesn't, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I think, I think it does because of the PTA meeting. The wife and the woman protesting the book do talk to each other for a little bit about the book.
Do they have names? I mean, we know the wife has a name.
Oh, I think the lady in the PTA is literally in the credits as like angry PTA mom. So unless angry is her first name, PTA is her middle, and mom is her last, then
no.
Yeah.
Wow, sad.
I think that's the struggle looking back on movies that were made in a certain pocket of time, which really contains all movies up until, I don't know, 2010 or something like that, is in this case, what's the balance between this is clearly Ray's story and giving a character like his wife, agency and effect in the story. Because I think you're right. I mean, it does seem like she's just there to say, go get him. And then that's it. And it seems like that they are suffering consequences because maybe she could have been a filter to say, hey, man, cool that you got a dream. But, these are our savings. It's all the money we have in life. So maybe, I don't know. Like I said afterwards, why didn't he take out a small loan to build the baseball field that he could have paid back over time? Like, why did he dump all of the savings,
Yeah.
but also it's a movie, and
Yeah, which, and I don't mean to be like, I don't think that I'm one of those people who can't watch a movie and kind of go, well, this is a movie. Like, you know, this isn't like pooping on all women. It's just one movie and it was about him. So, I mean, that's fair. And like, point taken that's, you know, it's just a movie and his story was kind of the main story. I just think it's probably because of our situation and just because I feel like we're pretty intentional about like acting as a team and making decisions as a team that benefit our family first, that it was probably just a little bit hard to wrap my head around, like being okay with that. I think the last thing that I really had that stuck out to me was you guys talking about, this was the question that he asked you. He asked you if you'd ever had a client who did not have some kind of issue with their, you know, either one parent or both parents, and both of you said no, which I don't know. I guess I just think parents, you know, hear that and know that. I hope this isn't discouraging. I don't mean to say like, even if you do your best, it's not going to be good enough. That's not what I am trying to say, or not what I hope you would hear from that. It's more that like we're just all humans, and like every single person, regardless of how they might come in saying, I have the best relationship with my parents, there's always going to be stuff from being parented by another human being that's going to impact you later in life. And I mean, I myself, I'm an example of that. Like I'm so close with my parents. I talk to my mom multiple times a week, almost every day. And her and I have had conversations about this, like that I feel truly loved by her and accepted. And I don't look back on my childhood with any kind of negative, you know, lens. But also I'm a human and they're human, and I'm sure that there's some of my, you know, deeper underlying core, you know, issues that probably do come from just growing up, you know, or maybe like patterns in our house or whatever it is. But that doesn't mean that they've done a bad job as a parent. It just means you're a human, you know, and I think you guys being therapists, like you really have the inside look on the fact that somebody can seem so put together and it seems like their family is, you know, quote unquote perfect. But everybody's got stuff to work through.
Yeah, I think another way to look at that would be, you know, as people, we have to be taught everything. Like, you know, our baby nephew that was just born, you know, he didn't come out with a worldview. And so just in the same way that he has to be taught to feed himself and use the restroom and all those kinds of things, he has to be taught his worldview.
Yeah.
And your brother and his wife are going to be teaching him that. And I think as worldviews are imparted to us as people, we reach an age of maturity where we then begin to pull out that worldview, re-examine it, and say, does this work for me moving forward? And I think that there is somewhat of a clash between the worldview that was handed down to us, and as we get out into the world and experience it, that, you know, there's going to be a conflict between the things that you're seeing and the filters that you run them through.
Yeah.
And so even if, you know, mom and dad did an A+ perfect job in raising you, there will naturally be a conflict between what you're seeing and experiencing and how you view it and what you were taught and what ways you were taught to view it. You know, for all the parents out there listening, even if you do a perfect job, that's just part of growing up and differentiating.
Yeah.
Figuring out who are you outside of your family of origin, which is tough work. And that's why, you know, whenever David and I say, well, we've never had a client come in that didn't have something with, you know, either one or both of their parents, that's because of that. It's because they're trying to differentiate, trying to figure out who am I outside of who I am with my parents.
Yeah.
Hey, love. Happy birthday.
Thanks.
47 years old. Wow.
No, it's my birthday, not your birthday.
Oh. Good thing we got some aloe vera, because that was a burn. Yeah, feel the dreams. buy, rent, or pass?
Ooh, buy for sure.
Yeah.
Buy, watch with your kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Or your dog. Either. All right. Well, what a great movie. What a great show. What a great birthday.
All right, everybody. It looks like it's time to lower the curtain, raise the lights. The theater is closed.